He was set up on a blind date, with the woman he once rejected. Marcus pressed his palm against the restaurant window, watching couples drift past in the autumn twilight. His reflection stared back, older, wearier, the lines around his eyes deeper than they'd been 5 years ago. His best friend Jake had insisted on this blind date, promising someone special, someone who would change everything. Marcus had stopped believing in such promises the day he walked away from the one person who'd actually meant them. The hostess smiled knowingly as she led him to a corner booth. "Your date should be here any minute," she said, and something in her tone made his stomach tighten. He ordered water, checked his phone, adjusted his tie, anything to quiet the inexplicable dread building in his chest. When he finally looked up, the world seemed to tilt sideways. Emma stood at the entrance, her hand frozen on the door handle, eyes wide with the same shock that had stolen his breath. For a moment, neither moved. Then she squared her shoulders in that way he remembered too well and walked toward him with deliberate grace, her emerald dress catching the candlelight. 5 years dissolved in an instant, and Marcus was 28 again, standing in a hospital corridor, making the worst decision of his life. "Hello, Marcus," she said quietly, sliding into the booth across from him. "Emma." Her name caught in his throat like broken glass. "I didn't know, Jake didn't tell me. My sister didn't tell me either." A ghost of a smile crossed her lips. "They've been conspiring, apparently. Playing matchmaker with other people's histories." The waiter appeared, mercifully breaking the terrible silence. They ordered without tasting the words, and when he left, Emma folded her hands on the table with the same composure she'd shown that night in the hospital when Marcus had shattered both their futures. "You look well," he managed. "So do you." She paused, studying him with those same intelligent brown eyes that had once looked at him like he hung the moon. "Though you look tired. Life at the firm keeping you busy." He'd made partner at 32, exactly as planned. The corner office, the 6-figure salary, the prestigious cases, everything he'd chosen over her. "Busy enough. And you? Jake mentioned you're running some kind of nonprofit." Emma's face transformed when she smiled. Really smiled, and Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. "I founded a community center in the South Side. We provide after-school programs, job training, meals for families who need them." She searched for the word. "It's everything." Of course it was. Emma had always poured herself into helping others, into making the world softer for people with harder lives. It was what had drawn him to her in the first place, back when they'd met volunteering at a food bank during law school. She'd been organizing donations while he'd been checking off pro bono hours for his resume, and she'd called him out on it with a directness that had both infuriated and captivated him. "That's wonderful, Emma. Really. Is it?" The question held no malice, only genuine curiosity. "You didn't think so 5 years ago." There it was, the elephant that had been sitting between them since she'd walked through the door. Marcus closed his eyes, transported back to that awful night when Emma's father had his heart attack. She'd called Marcus from the hospital, voice raw with fear, and he'd gone to her immediately. But when she'd asked him to stay, to take time off from his crucial case to help her family through the crisis, he'd hesitated. The senior partners were watching, his promotion hung in the balance, and Emma was asking him to choose. "I need you," she'd whispered, mascara streaking her cheeks. "Just for a few weeks. Help me get through this." And he'd said the words that still woke him at 3 in the morning. "I can't derail my entire career for this, Emma. Be reasonable." She'd stared at him like he was a stranger. "Get out," she'd said quietly. "And don't come back." He hadn't. He'd thrown himself into work, won the case, made partner, and spent 5 years trying to convince himself he'd made the right choice. But late at night, in his empty apartment overlooking the city he'd conquered, he knew the truth. He'd traded love for ambition and found that success tasted like ashes. "I was wrong," Marcus said now, the words tumbling out before courage could fail him. "That night, God, Emma, I was so wrong. I told myself I was being practical, that I was thinking about our future, but I was just scared. Scared that if I stepped off the track I'd planned, I'd lose everything I'd worked for. I didn't understand that I was losing the only thing that actually mattered." Emma's eyes glistened, but she didn't look away. "Do you know what happened after you left?" He shook his head, afraid to hear but needing to know. "My dad survived. He needed triple bypass surgery and months of recovery. I moved back home, took a leave from my job, learned how to cook heart-healthy meals and help with physical therapy. It was hard, the hardest thing I'd ever done. She paused, her voice softening. It was also when I realized what I actually wanted from life. Not a career that looked good on paper, but work that meant something. Not someone who loved me when it was convenient, but the kind of love that shows up when everything's falling apart. The words struck like physical blows, each one deserved. Did you find it? He asked quietly. That kind of love. I found it in myself first, Emma said. I learned I was stronger than I thought. Braver. I learned that the people who matter most aren't the ones who promise you everything when times are good, they're the ones who stay when times are terrible. She took a breath. I also learned to forgive you. Marcus felt tears burning behind his eyes. How? I don't think I've forgiven myself. Because holding onto anger was like carrying poison, Emma said simply. And because I realized you weren't cruel, Marcus. You were just afraid. We're all afraid of different things. You were terrified of failure, of not being enough. I understand that now. The waiter returned with their food, but neither of them moved to eat. Marcus felt like he was standing at a crossroads, seeing clearly for the first time in years. I want to know about your center, he said. Everything about it. What you're building, what you need, how I can help. Emma tilted her head, surprised. Why? Because I've spent 5 years winning cases and losing sleep, and I can't remember the last time anything felt meaningful. Because seeing you tonight reminded me of who I used to want to be. Because. He met her eyes. Because even if you can never forgive me enough to give us another chance, I want to be the kind of person who deserves one. I want to be someone who shows up. Something shifted in Emma's expression, not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps the beginning of possibility. The center needs legal help, she said carefully. Navigating nonprofit regulations, reviewing contracts, helping families with documentation. I can't pay much. I don't want your money. Marcus felt certainty settling into his bones like coming home. I want to help. However you'll let me. They talked through dinner, really talked, the way they used to. Emma described 12-year-olds learning to code, single mothers earning GEDs, community dinners where neighbors became family. Marcus shared his growing disillusionment with corporate law, his hunger for work that mattered beyond billable hours. When the restaurant began closing around them, neither wanted the evening to end. I should go, Emma said finally, gathering her coat. But Marcus, thank you for tonight, for being honest. Can I see you again? The question came out raw with hope. Not a date, unless you want. But maybe I could visit the center. Meet your team. Emma studied him for a long moment, and Marcus held his breath. Then she smiled, that real smile that lit up her whole face. Come by Tuesday at 4. And Marcus, don't come because you feel guilty. Come because you actually want to be there. I will be, he promised, and meant it with every fractured piece of his heart. Walking home through the October night, Marcus felt something unfamiliar, hope. He'd been given an extraordinary gift, not another chance at romance necessarily, but something perhaps more precious. A chance to become the man he should have been 5 years ago. A chance to choose meaning over status, connection over achievement, love over fear. He thought of Emma building something beautiful from nothing, helping people with the same fierce compassion she'd once shown him. He'd rejected that love when he'd needed it most, too blind to see its value. But maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to learn. Not to reclaim what he'd lost, that might never be possible, but to honor it by becoming worthy of the lesson. To show up, to stay, to choose love over fear, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Tuesday couldn't come fast enough.